My name is Lin Xinyao, 24 years old, and until tonight I believed in love. Now I know love can kill. The rain lashed down like knives, soaking through my evening gown, heavy enough to weigh me to the ground. The glittering lights of the banquet hall still burned behind me, but they felt like another world. Just minutes ago I was his wife, the celebrated Mrs. Liu, wife of Liu Zian, the most powerful CEO in the city. I should have been standing proudly beside him, yet instead I was shoved out like a criminal. Lin Xinyao, you've embarrassed the Liu family for the last time. His voice, cold and sharp, rang in my ears. I can still see his eyes, icy, merciless, looking at me not with love but with disgust. Those eyes once softened when I smiled. Tonight they condemned me. The crowd gasped when the security guards dragged me to the center of the hall. My so-called friends whispered, their painted lips curling in delight. A woman in a glittering red dress stepped forward, clutching Liu Zian's arm as if she already owned him. She framed me, she cried, crocodile tears spilling. She tried to ruin me because she's jealous of my love with Brother Zian. Brother Zian. That poisonous address still burns. And him, my husband, the man I gave everything to, he didn't even hesitate. He didn't look at me, didn't ask for proof, didn't defend me. He simply raised his hand and signed the paper that stripped me of my name, my dignity, and my marriage. Divorce. Just like that, with one pen stroke he severed the bond one had cherished, crushed the vows we once swore beneath the stars. The whispers grew louder. Pathetic. She thought money could make her worthy. Look at her, drenched like a rat. Disgusting. I wanted to scream, to defend myself, to beg him to believe me. But the weight of humiliation crushed my chest. Every word stuck in my throat. Then the red-dressed woman leaned closer to him, smiling triumphantly. Don't worry, Zian. I'll take care of you from now on. He nodded. He nodded. At that moment my heart shattered. Not from betrayal, but from the realization that I had always been a fool. I staggered back, blinded by tears, stumbling into the storm outside. My heels snapped on the steps, and I collapsed onto the cold pavement. People brushed past me, some laughing, some pitying, but no one helped. My phone buzzed endlessly, messages, photos, headlines spreading like wildfire. Mrs. Liu exposed. Cheating wife thrown out of CEO's mansion. The world believed the lie. And he let them. By midnight I had no home, no family, no friends. Only a heart hollowed out by betrayal. I wandered to the riverbank, where the city lights blurred in the rain. My chest hurt, every breath sharp like knives. I thought it was heartbreak. But then the real pain hit. A stabbing agony spreading through my veins. My body convulsed and I realized too late, poison. It wasn't enough for them to take my dignity. They wanted my life. I collapsed into the mud, my trembling hand reaching for help that would never come. Above me, the rain pounded harder, and in the distance I saw them, Liu Zian and the red-dressed woman, standing beneath an umbrella watching. He didn't move. He didn't care. The last warmth left my body. The betrayal tasted bitter on my tongue. But as darkness crept in, a fire burned within my dying heart. If there was a God, if there was a chance, I wouldn't beg for love. I wouldn't plead for mercy. I would rise again. And if I lived once more, I would never love Liu Zian. And I would make him regret betraying me. Darkness. Silence. Nothingness. That's what I expected after death. A cold void where my pain would finally end. But instead, I felt warmth. A strange, familiar warmth brushing against my skin. My eyelids twitched, heavy but not lifeless. Slowly I forced them open, and what I saw nearly drove me mad. The ceiling above me was not the sterile white of a hospital nor the shadows of the riverbank where I collapsed. It was pale pink, decorated with stickers of stars and flowers. I froze. That ceiling. I knew it. I hadn't seen it in years, but I knew it as well as I knew my own reflection. It was the ceiling of my old bedroom. Gasping, I sat up, and the world tilted. My hands trembled in front of me. They weren't pale, skeletal hands poisoned and dying. They were smooth, unmarked, young. I stumbled toward the mirror hanging on the wardrobe, and almost collapsed when I saw the reflection staring back at me. A girl. Not the broken woman who died. Not the 24-year-old Mrs. Liu, abandoned and discarded. But me at 18. My hair was long and uncut, my cheeks soft with youth. My eyes wide, unclouded by despair. I touched my face with shaking fingers, whispering, This isn't possible. But everything, the posters on the wall, the stack of schoolbooks on the desk, the calendar dated 6 years ago, confirmed the truth. I had been reborn. Reborn to the past. My heart raced wildly, pounding like a drum. All the memories of betrayal, humiliation, and death surged like a tidal wave. My husband, no, that devil Lu Zian, had abandoned me, framed me, watched me die without lifting a finger. And now fate had given me another chance. I staggered to my desk and grabbed the calendar, my eyes locking on today's date. My blood turned cold. This was the exact week I first met him at the university orientation. The week I fell for his cold smile, believing it hid kindness. The week that sealed my doomed future. No, I whispered, clutching the calendar so hard it crumpled in my fist. Not this time. Never again. I remembered vividly, the first time he brushed past me on campus, the moment our eyes met, the arrogance in his every step. Back then I thought he was untouchable, dazzling, the kind of man written in fairy tales. And like a fool I chased that fairy tale straight into hell. But now, I knew what lay beneath his perfect mask. Cruelty. Betrayal. Death. I swore to myself right then and there. This time I will not be his victim. A knock on the door startled me. Xinyao. You'll be late for class. My mother's voice, alive, warm, filled with the same nagging love I once took for granted. Tears blurred my vision. She had died in my previous life, worn down by illness and grief. Yet here she was just outside my door, breathing, alive. I bit my lip, holding back sobs. Coming, Mom. I couldn't waste this miracle. This wasn't just about me. It was about protecting her. Protecting my family. I would not allow them to be destroyed by my foolish choices again. When I stepped outside, sunlight streamed through the windows. The village street was busy, neighbors calling to each other, children chasing after kites. It was ordinary, simple. And it was everything I had lost. Every moment felt unreal. Yet my resolve grew stronger with each breath. At the bus stop I spotted a familiar figure waiting in the crowd. A tall man in a tailored suit, too sharp, too polished for the shabby campus neighborhood. My chest constricted. It was him. Lu Zian. Younger, colder, but unmistakable. He stood with one hand in his pocket, scrolling through his phone with a look of detached arrogance, already surrounded by admiring glances from girls nearby. My stomach twisted with rage. 6 years from now, that man would be the death of me. But 6 years no longer existed. This time I had the advantage. I had knowledge he didn't. As I passed him, his gaze flickered up briefly, brushing over me. In my past life, that one glance had been enough to snare my heart. But now all I felt was disgust. He tilted his head slightly, as though amused by my lack of reaction. You. Stop. His voice still carried that commanding edge, sharp enough to make others freeze. But I didn't. I kept walking, not sparing him a second glance. Behind me I sensed his surprise, faint but real. For once, I wasn't the starry-eyed girl who melted under his gaze. Inside, my heart pounded furiously. But my steps didn't falter. This time, Lu Zian, you will never own me. This time I will rewrite fate. And one day it will be you who kneels and begs for my love. The campus gates loomed before me, unchanged by the years, yet entirely different through my eyes. In my past life I had walked through them with a fluttering heart, foolishly hoping for romance, destiny, and fairy tales. Now as I stepped onto the grounds, the smell of wet grass after last night's rain filled the air, and the sound of chatter echoed across the quad. But inside me there was only steel. I wasn't here to chase dreams anymore. I was here to take control of fate. Students in crisp uniforms hurried past, eyes filled with excitement for their first week. I caught the whispers around me. Girls gushing over a certain someone, their voices trembling with infatuation. Have you seen him? He's like a movie star. They say he's already driving a luxury car to class. And I heard his family owns a corporation. We're talking billionaire level. I didn't have to ask who. I already knew. Lucian. In my past life, those whispers had made me curious, and curiosity had led to infatuation. But now they only made my lip curl in disdain. They didn't know that behind his polished smile was a wolf with fangs sharp enough to rip their world apart. I headed to the lecture hall, determined to keep my distance. Yet fate, as always, seemed to enjoy playing cruel games. Because the moment I walked in, he was there. Sitting in the middle row, back straight, suit immaculate despite the casual student setting. His aura was magnetic, chilling, drawing all eyes toward him like moths to a flame. The professor wasn't even in the room yet, but already Lucian commanded the space. Our gazes brushed again. This time his eyes lingered. I froze for a fraction of a second, then forced myself to look away. I sat in the far corner of the room, ignoring the giggling girls who whispered about how lucky I was to even breathe the same air as him. But my heart was anything but calm. In my last life I had worshipped this man from the shadows, too shy, too small, too poor. And when he finally noticed me, I thought it was fate's blessing. Instead it was fate's curse. Now reborn, I refused to play that part again. The lecture began, the professor droning on about economics. I scribbled notes diligently, refusing to let my eyes drift his way. But soon a shadow fell across my desk. I looked up and my stomach sank. Lucian was standing right beside me. The room seemed to still, every student turning to watch, envy gleaming in their eyes. You. His voice was low, deep, a command disguised as a word. My hand tightened around my pen. What do you want? A flicker of amusement crossed his perfect features. He leaned slightly closer, lowering his voice so only I could hear. Yesterday you ignored me. That's rare. Tell me, was it intentional? His breath brushed against my ear, sending shivers down my spine, not of attraction but of rage. He still thought the world revolved around him. In my past life I would have blushed, stammered, felt honored that he even noticed me. But not this time. I met his gaze head-on, my voice steady. Yes, it was. A sharp intake of breath swept through the classroom. The girls stared at me as if I had lost my mind. Rejecting Lucian? Admitting it to his face? His lips curved, not into anger but something worse. Interest. I had caught his attention. And that, I realized with a sinking feeling, was dangerous. For the rest of the lecture, he didn't return to his seat. He leaned casually against the wall near me, his eyes flicking toward me now and then, studying me like I was a puzzle he couldn't solve. My pulse raced, but I kept my head down, determined not to crack. Still, I could feel the weight of his gaze, heavy and unsettling. When class finally ended, I tried to slip away quickly. But just as I reached the door, his hand shot out, blocking my path against the frame. Running away, he murmured, his eyes gleaming with a predator's interest. I swallowed hard, my fists clenching at my sides. Move. Or what? His smile was infuriatingly confident, the smile of a man who had never been denied in his life. You'll keep pretending you don't care? That only makes me more curious. His words sent ice through my veins. Because I could already see it, the shift in his gaze, the curiosity turning into obsession. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. I wanted to avoid him, erase him from my life. But by pushing him away, I had done something far more dangerous. I had intrigued him. And if there was one thing more terrifying than his cruelty, it was his interest. I pushed past him with all my strength, my voice shaking despite my bravado. Stay away from me, Lucian. I mean it. The hall fell silent. Gasps echoed. But behind me, his low chuckle followed like a haunting promise. You'll regret saying that. My heart pounded violently as I rushed outside, the sun blinding, the wind sharp against my skin. For a moment I pressed my hand to my chest, steadying myself. But deep down I knew the truth. In my past life I had chased him. In this one he would chase me. And that was only the beginning of the storm. When I woke the next morning, the air was thick with whispers. At first I thought it was my imagination, But as I walked through campus, the stairs became impossible to ignore. Students clustered in groups, their voices low but urgent, their eyes darting toward me with something between curiosity and scorn. She actually told him off. Who does she think she is? She'll regret it. Nobody humiliates Lucian and gets away with it. My grip tightened on my books. So it had spread already. The scene from yesterday had rippled through campus like wildfire, fueling gossip and speculation. In my past life, the idea of being on everyone's lips would have crushed me, made me want to shrink into the shadows. But now, reborn, I straightened my spine and lifted my chin. Let them talk. Their whispers didn't control me anymore. Still, I knew Lucian wouldn't let yesterday go unanswered. He was the kind of man who crushed those who dared to bruise his pride. In my past life, I would have begged for mercy. But this time, I would not wait passively for his strike. I would make the first move. The opportunity came sooner than I expected. That afternoon, the economics club was hosting a mock business competition. Teams were assigned at random, tasked with pitching a strategy for a failing company. It was supposed to be a learning exercise, but in truth, it was just another stage where elites flaunted their wit and power. And of course Lucian was there. His presence was magnetic, dominating the room. Girls flocked around him, desperate to be chosen for his team. Professors nodded approvingly at his polished demeanor, already treating him like a young master rather than a student. I was paired with 3 nervous classmates who looked at me with thinly veiled disappointment. "Great, we're stuck with her," one muttered. "She made the CEO angry yesterday. Watch us lose." I smiled inwardly. Let them underestimate me. It was an advantage I intended to use. The task began. Each group was given 30 minutes to prepare, then present in front of professors and peers. My teammates immediately looked to me with doubt. "Do you even understand corporate strategy?" one sneered. I ignored them and calmly flipped through the case file. The company's problem was glaringly obvious. A liquidity crisis caused by mismanaged debt. The solution was simple but required bold thinking. We restructure the debt, liquidate non-performing assets, and pivot toward emerging markets, I said firmly. They blinked, stunned. That's actually good. Focus on the details, I instructed. Leave the presentation to me. When our turn came, I walked onto the stage with steady steps. The professors looked surprised, some even smirking, as if expecting me to embarrass myself. In the corner of my eye, I caught Lucian leaning back casually in his seat, arms crossed, his lips curved in that infuriating half-smile. He expected me to fail. But when I began speaking, the room shifted. I explained the restructuring plan with clarity, breaking down complex terms into sharp, digestible points. My voice was calm, confident, every sentence flowing like I'd rehearsed it 100 times. I even added a daring twist. An acquisition plan that would turn the company's weakness into strength. Murmurs filled the room. Professors exchanged glances, eyebrows raised. Even my teammates who had doubted me moments ago, now stared with wide eyes. And then I saw it, Lucian's smile faltered. For the first time I had unsettled him. When the presentations ended, the judges gave feedback. One professor leaned forward, his tone impressed. That was remarkable. Practical and visionary. You may have just proposed the best solution of the afternoon. A ripple of applause swept through the room. I bowed politely, hiding the fire of triumph in my chest. In my past life, I had lived in this man's shadow, believing I was nothing more than a girl barely worthy of notice. But now I had proven to everyone and to myself that I could stand on my own. As I stepped down from the stage, I felt his gaze burning into me. Stronger this time. Sharper. I didn't even look at him. I walked past, head high, every step echoing my silent declaration. I was not the same girl anymore. But as I left the hall, I caught his voice, low, dangerous, meant only for me. You've changed. My steps faltered just for a heartbeat. He was right. I had changed. And that was exactly why he would never have the same power over me again. Or so I thought. Because when I looked back, his eyes were no longer cold. They were burning with interest, with challenge, with something terrifyingly close to obsession. It sent a chill racing down my spine. I had won today's battle, but I had also awakened a war. I never imagined the day would come when the man who once discarded me like a broken toy would be standing in front of me, his proud head bowed, his voice hoarse with regret. It was at a grand gala, a place where glittering chandeliers rained light over silk gowns and polished shoes. I wore a crimson dress that shimmered like fire, my smile dazzling as I mingled with powerful men and women. I had rebuilt myself stronger and brighter than ever before. And then he appeared. The once arrogant CEO who had ruined me in my past life now stood frozen across the hall, his eyes fixed on me as though he had seen a ghost. He pushed past the crowd, his composure cracking with every step. "Yenner." His voice trembled, and for the first time, I saw something raw in his eyes: fear. Fear of losing me. I raised my champagne glass, my lips curving into a smile colder than ice. "Presidently, we're strangers now. Please don't mistake familiarity for closeness." Gasps rippled through the crowd, but I stood tall. In my past life, I had begged for his attention. In this one, I would never kneel again. He reached out, almost desperately, his hand shaking. "Please give me one more chance. I was blind. I was a fool. I can't." I stepped back, refusing his touch. "You want forgiveness? That died with me the night you betrayed me." The room fell silent. He, the man who had always looked down on the world, was now reduced to begging before me. His knees nearly buckled, his pride shattered for all to see. And yet, instead of satisfaction, I felt empty. Because no matter how much he regretted it, nothing could erase the blood, the humiliation, the pain of my first life. I whispered so only he could hear, my eyes sharp as blades. "This life is mine. My love, my heart, my future. They no longer belong to you." As I turned away, the music swelled, drowning his broken voice. I walked forward, every step declaring my freedom, while behind me, the once untouchable CEO collapsed into despair. For the first time, the power was mine. And this time, I would never let anyone destroy me again. I never thought I would see the once proud CEO, the man who once destroyed me with nothing more than a cold word, standing outside my office like a beggar. Yet there he was, his immaculate suit rumpled, his sharp eyes darkened with exhaustion, his lips pressing out words that would have shaken me in my previous life. "Please just give me a chance." The same man who had once framed me, cast me aside, and left me to die now blocked my way like a shadow that refused to move. His voice cracked, his pride stripped away, but I only felt a chilling satisfaction coil inside me. In my last life, I had crawled for his scraps of affection. Now it was his turn to crawl. The entire company was watching. My employees glanced through the glass walls with wide eyes, whispering, shocked to see the legendary CEO humbled. But what none of them knew was that this moment had been building for months, ever since I started my careful rise back into power. He tried to explain, to reach for my wrist, but I stepped back. "Don't touch me," I said, my voice as cold as the blade that had once ended my first life. For a heartbeat, the mask slipped from his face. I saw the panic, the fear that I truly no longer belonged to him. His arrogance had cracked, replaced by something raw and desperate. "Everything I built," he whispered hoarsely, "feels empty without you. I was blind before. Don't punish me like this." But I only laughed softly, a laugh that echoed through the silent corridor. "Empty? Do you know what real emptiness is? It's lying on the ground, bleeding, and realizing the man you loved most was the one who pushed you there. Compared to that, your loneliness is nothing." He flinched as though struck. And for the first time I saw him truly shaken, not by rivals, not by money, not by power struggles, but by me, the reborn me. Yet even as I turned away, I could sense that this was not the end. A man like him, arrogant, obsessive, unyielding, would not stop at begging. He would fight, scheme, claw his way into my life again. And the real question was not whether he would pursue me. It was how far he was willing to go, and whether I would let him. I thought my cold rejection would finally make him retreat. I thought he would return to his skyscrapers, his endless board meetings, his world of money and influence. But I underestimated how far an arrogant man would go once his pride and heart collided. The very next morning, I arrived at my modest company only to find a fleet of black cars parked outside. His men in suits stood like silent statues at the entrance, intimidating my employees. And in the center of it all, he stood there, calm, unmovable, as if he owned not just the street, but the very air I breathed. "You can't keep avoiding me," he said smoothly, his voice carrying the authority of someone used to being obeyed. I ignored him and tried to walk past, but then he pulled out something I hadn't expected. A contract. "Your company has just secured its biggest deal, hasn't it?" His lips curled in that dangerous half-smile. "Do you think it happened by chance? It was me. I've been protecting you quietly, ensuring your competitors don't crush you. Without me, you wouldn't have lasted this long." My blood turned cold. So he had been pulling strings all along. "You think I owe you gratitude?" I spat. "Don't mistake interference for kindness." His eyes darkened, and for the first time his arrogance flared again. "Gratitude? No. What I want is you. If it takes dismantling your world piece by piece to bring you back to me, I'll do it." My employees were whispering nervously, fear spreading like wildfire. To them he wasn't just a man, he was a force of nature, a storm they couldn't fight. And in truth, I felt the weight of his power pressing against me like a cage. But I refused to break. "You can try to control my work, my surroundings, even my future," I said, stepping forward with steady eyes. "But you can never control my heart again. That part of me died the day you betrayed me." For a flicker of a moment, pain crossed his face. But then it hardened into something darker. An obsession that promised he wouldn't stop. He leaned closer, his voice a low threat, a vow. "Then I'll make you live long enough to remember me every single day. You'll see me in your company, your home, your shadow. You can hate me, but you won't erase me." And with that he left, leaving behind a trail of fear, questions, and a realization that this war between us was far from over. Because he was no longer begging. He was hunting. I thought his threats were just words, grand arrogant declarations from a man who couldn't accept rejection. But soon I realized they weren't empty at all. Within a week, my company faced a sudden storm. Suppliers who had worked with us for years pulled out without warning. Banks delayed crucial loans. Clients canceled contracts overnight. It was as if an invisible hand was tightening around my throat, squeezing every last breath of independence from me. And I knew exactly whose hand it was. When I stormed into his office, his towering empire of glass and steel, he was already waiting, lounging behind his desk with a calmness that infuriated me. "Why are you doing this?" I demanded, my voice shaking with fury. He didn't even flinch. "Because you refuse to see the truth. You and I, we are bound. You can run, you can fight, but in the end your world is already in my palm. I warned you, didn't I? You won't erase me." I slammed my hands on his desk. "This isn't love, it's control. You're no different from the man who betrayed me before. You want power, not me." For the first time his expression cracked. He stood, stepping around the desk until he was inches from me. His eyes burned, not with cold arrogance but with something raw. "No. You're wrong. With him I gave you up. This time I'd rather burn the world than lose you again." I staggered back, my heart pounding. The intensity in his voice terrified me more than his power ever could. But then the danger became real. That night, as I left my office, a black SUV screeched to a halt beside me. Masked men leapt out, dragging me inside before I could scream. I fought, but they were too strong. Hours later, I found myself locked in a cold warehouse, trembling. The leader sneered. "Your CEO lover made too many enemies. Guess what? They want to hurt him by breaking you." It hit me like a thunderbolt. This wasn't just about obsession anymore. His enemies were watching, waiting, and I had unknowingly stepped into the crossfire. Suddenly, the warehouse doors burst open, and there he was, ruthless, terrifying, with his men storming in behind him. In that moment, I saw a side of him I'd never seen before. A man willing to destroy anyone who dared touch me. When it was over, he came to me, his suit stained, his hands trembling slightly as he untied the ropes. His voice was rough but gentle. Do you see now? You can't escape me. Not because I won't let you, but because the world itself won't let you survive without me. Tears burned in my eyes, because deep down I knew he was right. I was already in his trap, and whether I wanted it or not, there was no way out. After the warehouse incident, I couldn't sleep for days. Every creak of the floor, every flicker of shadow made me flinch. I hated admitting it, but I was shaken to my core. And worst of all, I hated that the only person who had made me feel safe was the very man who terrified me most. He didn't leave me alone. Every morning, there were fresh flowers outside my door. Every evening, his black car trailed behind mine, keeping a careful distance as if guarding me. My phone buzzed with unanswered calls, messages that I deleted without reading. But one night when I returned to my apartment, I found him waiting, not in his usual tailored suit, but in a simple shirt, his sleeves rolled up, his hair slightly messy. There was no arrogance in his posture, only weariness. I'm not here to threaten you, he said quietly, just to ask for one chance. Not as a CEO, not as a man who once destroyed you, just as someone who doesn't know how to live without you. I froze. For the first time, his voice trembled. He stepped closer, holding out a worn, folded photograph. My hand shook as I took it. It was of me, taken years ago at a charity event where we had first met. In the photo, I was laughing, unguarded, radiant. I kept this, he confessed, his eyes dark but gentle. Even when I didn't deserve to. Even when I was too blind to see what I had. I don't want to own you, I don't want to control you. I just want to stand beside you, no matter how long it takes. His words struck something deep within me. For so long, I had thought of him only as the monster from my past. But standing here, stripped of power, stripped of pride, he looked less like a CEO and more like a man drowning, reaching for the only lifeline he knew. Still, my heart warred against itself. Could I trust him? Could I forgive what he had done? I looked away, blinking back tears. You want redemption? Then prove it. Not with power, not with money, not with words. Show me with actions. Until then, I won't believe you. For a long moment he was silent. Then to my shock he knelt before me. The great, arrogant CEO knelt at my feet, his head bowed. As long as it takes, he whispered. Even if I have to wait a lifetime. And for the first time since my rebirth, my heart faltered. The day of reckoning came faster than I expected. The boardroom was packed with shareholders, reporters, and competitors, each waiting to see if the empire he had built would crumble. His enemies, the very ones who once whispered lies about me, had come to feast on the spectacle of his downfall. I stood at the back, arms crossed, my heart a storm. This was the moment I had longed for. The moment when the arrogant CEO who once betrayed me would lose everything. They attacked him mercilessly. Numbers, scandals, betrayals, all laid out in flashing screens. The man who once ruled the world with a glance now looked cornered, stripped of the power that defined him. And then his eyes found mine. There was no pride left. No arrogance. Only a silent plea, don't walk away now. My chest tightened. I remembered his words, the photograph he carried, the nights he guarded me in silence. I remembered him kneeling before me, stripped of everything but sincerity. The room roared with accusations. And then I spoke. Enough. My voice cut through the chaos like a blade. Every head turned. I stepped forward, heels clicking against the marble floor. You call him ruthless, arrogant, cold, but you forget something. This man is also capable of change. Gasps rippled through the room. I laid the documents I'd been holding on the table, evidence that exposed the true culprits of the scandal. Not him. The very people sitting smugly in the front row. Their faces drained of color. The cameras flashed, capturing the twist. And in that instant the tide shifted. The whispers of condemnation turned into stunned silence, then into reluctant admiration. He stared at me as though I were the only person in the room. His lips trembled. Not in command but in gratitude. When the meeting ended and the vultures fled, He approached me slowly, as though afraid I'd vanish if he moved too quickly. Why? His voice cracked. After everything I did to you, why save me? I swallowed, my throat thick with emotion. Because I wasn't saving the man who betrayed me. I was saving the man who finally learned to cherish me. Tears welled in his eyes, tears I never thought I'd see from him. And when his arms wrapped around me, it wasn't the embrace of possession, but of devotion. In that moment, the vow I had once made, if I could live again, I'd make you regret, shifted. Yes, I had made him regret. I had made him kneel. But I had also made him love truly and desperately. This was my reckoning. This was my renewal. And as his lips pressed against mine, in front of the whole world, I realized my revenge had given me something far more powerful than triumph. A love reborn from ashes.